I'm Kathy McNeil. Welcome to my sewing space. I live north of Seattle on Puget Sound, and so my studio has great windows that look right out onto Puget Sound. Let me take you on a little tour to show you some of my storage tips and some of the things I've built into my studio to make my work lots easier. So we'll start with the thread rack that's behind my sewing machine. Doesn't have all of my thread, but my most frequently used thread on it. And then in the corner here, I have all of my rulers and special little measuring tools. And all I did was take a wonderful little wire sculpture that I found at Pier 1 Imports, and I just bent the wires out so that I could actually just hang all of my rulers on top of that, so they're easily accessible. And then I have a great Bernina sewing machine, which is built in flush to my table, which makes working pulling quilt tops on top so much easier. And it's on a 6-foot long table. And that table has a nice, smooth, easy, cleanable surface. Here's one of my favorite little storage tools tips. And this was given to me by a quilt guild in Oregon, and it's one of my favorite little things, and I don't know where they got the pattern, but it just fits on a little cup, and all of my most frequently used items are just right in there for easy access and easy organization. This is actually a drafting table, and it's my applique table, and I just store my cutting mats on there too for small easy pieces. And this is where I sit in my chair most of the day when I have the opportunity to sew, and I can look out and see all the beautiful things that are happening in nature outside. You can see my fabric paint crayons are right here. For those of you who have them, or if you don't have them, they're for sale in my store, and these are precious to me. I use them every single day to add little highlights or little shadows, or to actually change the color of a print that I like. They're transparent, so you can see the print right through them. They over dye fabrics beautifully, and they just heat set permanently with your iron. So these are there all the time with a little bit of water and some brushes to play with. My fabric storage, so this is actually all the fabric I have. There's nothing else that's put away in drawers or anything that you can't see, because in pictorial work you don't have lots of amount of fabric, lots of yardage. What you have is lots and lots of little pieces that you can fussy cut certain shapes from. It's basically just put in colors. There is one whole basket that just has landscape fabric in it. It has trees, bushes, grasses, things like that. But I like the open wire racks so I can just pull them out easily and see what's in them. I do have a couple shelves that have non-cotton things in them, like tulle and specialty yarns and things like that. In the cupboards are just teaching supplies for all of my various workshops. I love my bamboo floors, which you probably saw when we were first panning the whole room, and because they're really easy to just sweep and clean up, and any sort of pins that fall on the floor, I just have a magnet that I can just grab those right back off of the floor. It has a lot of natural lighting in my studio. So I have 3 nice big skylights for natural light, and I also have about, 24 can lights or something. So there's a lot of light in here. And as I get older, I need more and more of that light to do those little tiny hand applique stitches. My ironing board is covered with a flannel sheet, and I have a couple of those so that I can trade that out and launder them. My first go-to method is to turn over edges is with spray sizing. So this gets stiff in places after a while, and I can just flip this over or change it or take it down and launder it and use the other one for a while too. So that the multiple ways to applique shows you how to turn over those edges with sizing, and 5 other different applique techniques if you're interested in that too. I teach lots of workshops. I have lots and lots of patterns, both animal patterns and landscape patterns, bird patterns. So I store my patterns, try to leave them nice and flat so that they don't end up with permanent wrinkles. So I have several design walls that these are just pinned into too. And then I have my own working design wall that's for my much bigger quilts. It's actually 80 by 80. So it's a very big design wall, and it's made really easy construction. It's simply 2 pieces that you go to Home Depot or Lowe's, and it's just 1-inch styrofoam. And then I took a queen size sheet and just a neutral sort of color. So a queen size cotton sheet that was just stretched over the top of, they were duct taped together. The sheet was stretched over the top of them and then taped to the back of the styrofoam. And then we just put this styrofoam up against the wall, and my husband just, with his nail gun, just nailed it right to the wall. And as you can see, I can just pin things right up, and it makes things so nice and easy. So this is the project I'm working on right now. You can see it has borders, but I still have to quilt the borders and put the binding on. But I can get away from these nice big pieces because you saw that this is, my sewing space is actually my family room. So I can get back a good 10 feet away from this and see it as you can from a distance, which is really helpful if you're trying to see something that's the scale size of this quilt, which is about 60 by 50 or something like that. So my sewing space, my dogs are in it. They're always on the couch sleeping or playing. It has my office space in it for both my husband, who does all of our business stuff, and for my computer. And then it also has a great place for my grandkids to come and play too. Some people like to have their sewing studio separate from their house and just their own place that they can go just to sew and to be quiet. And I actually like it when the people in my family or the people that I love are in this space with me, because I like all of that energy. This is a 4-foot by 6-foot work surface here that I can do, start laying out my quilts as they get bigger and bigger on these, to put the sections to the different sections, or for a large cutting surface, or to put on my binding. What's great about this table is it's that same surface that's really easily cleanable, and it also has a nice storage space underneath of it. But the best thing about this great work surface is that it's on wheels. So when I'm ready, when I need it to be out of my way in the room, or most importantly, when it's time to quilt, I can push this table right up to my quilt machine, and I can then lay the entire quilt. So I have the weight of the quilt evenly laid out over here, so I'm just having to work on my small little section that I'm quilting, and I don't have to have that big quilt up over the top of my shoulder or draped on an ironing board or something else. So this movable surface that goes in flush to my for my machine is just a boon at the time of quilting. Really helps take some of the stress off of your shoulders too. So if you can put these tables on wheels, do it. These tubes over here are just from Joann's, and I just ask them for these leftover tubes because I tend to roll my quilts on them when I go to trunk shows, so to keep them from being folded as much as possible. So there's just a storage bin for those. I have a built-in light box, which is really handy for when you need to trace things. And it's just a table that the underside of it has a light mounted on it, so that makes things real handy. And then my workspace is right here. And then over here, I wanted to show you too my paper roll. So if you scan up here to the ceiling, you'll see that there's a great big huge roll of paper. I draw all of my quilts out, so they are all sketched out for the final size and dimension that I think that they're going to end up being, so that I can actually tell, you know, how big of a mountain to make, how big of a lake to make, how big of a, you know, a little puppy dog to make or something. So I need some really big paper. So this paper roll has lasted at least 10 years. I went to a big paper supply company and we bought a huge big paper roll, and then my husband just mounted it on a dowel so that I can just bring it down and cut off the sizes that I need, and then it's easily stored away. It's really heavy, so trying to get it out of a closet or something would be difficult, but that made it really, really handy. And then I'd like to show you too how I store my quilts for when they're not out at shows and competition. And this is a wonderful system that my husband designed. It's just in a stairwell, so it doesn't use up a lot of additional space in the room. And it is also, it's kind of like almost like a gun rack or a mount for something like that. And then it just has dowel, and he put polyurethane coating on all of the wood, because you don't want the wood to be up against your quilts and possibly have some of the leaching of the color or chemicals out of the wood itself. So it's all finished, and then the quilts are all rolled, and then they each have their own little covers over them that are tied or pinned on the ends to keep the dust from getting into them, and they're mounted back far enough under the skylight so that the direct light doesn't get onto them, but also the covering helps protect them from the UV rays too. So it's a great way to not have those quilts folded all the time and have those permanent creases, and also to put additional stress on the threads where they're actually folded. And then I just want to take a peek. Here's another just storage space for some of my workshop quilts. And then right off of my sewing room, right off of the family room, is my bedroom. So I could just stay in my sewing room all day long. I could go into my bedroom if I need the restroom, or if I need a quick little spirit nap. And if I didn't have to eat, then I wouldn't go downstairs at all. So this is my bedroom. It's a wacky, crazy artist bedroom. Before I started quilting, when I finally decided that I needed to do something for myself again, because I was working full-time as a nurse and had 4 children, challenging teenagers and parents who were getting old and very sick and needed a lot of help too. When I was finally going crazy enough that I decided, you know, I'm going to go back and start drawing like I did when I was a kid. It was something that gave me great pleasure, made me so happy. So one day I came into my bedroom and I tore all the wallpaper off, and I started just drawing and painting in here. And you can see that it has wall-to-wall murals in here. And then I discovered quilting a year later and realized that people actually made pictures with fabric and fell totally in love with that entire concept, and was so excited that I could still make pictures, but it would have all of the wonderful tradition of so many women doing this in fabric across so many centuries and so many cultures, and it would have all of that inherent love and warmth that everyone associates with quilts too. So I quickly left all of this behind and became a quilter. So thanks so much for coming on my family room studio tour, and I hope that you have a wonderful quilting year.